Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. It's me, Dr. Ian, and yes, the years have been unkind. And welcome back to my TED Talk, although my name is not Theodore, or the colloquially more accepted Ted. We continue with my Life Finds a Way series of talks with orcs, or as I like to call them, God said choose A or B, and the devil said or C, or K, if that's how your grammar prefers it. Yes, well, orcs, generally known on the whole as Orcus horrificus, is one of the most versatile species in all of fiction, because truly, indeed, orcs are whatever you need them to be for your story. Indeed, while horrificus applies to the orcs in general, they are generally comprised of several subspecies. Let's take a look at several of these species. First up is the most famous, being Orcus tolkienicus. You can identify this orc as being very ugly, extremely ugly, grown in pods by evil wizards, and sounding like New Zealanders wrapped in plastic latex. Next is Orcus funghammericus. Now, this orc is actually a sentient fungus, famous for their love of destruction. Kind of makes you think Bowser was right about the Mushroom Kingdom, but I don't like to bring politics into these talks. Well known to nerds is Orcus blizzardicus. This is actually one of the first species of orcs to have females. They reproduce sexually, although where's the fun in that? I do like to quote myself. I think I'm the one who said that. Yeah. Well, anyway, and because opening a comic book review with a TED Talk and this poor impression wasn't that strong of an idea to begin with, last up, it's the orc in this review, Orcus dumbonicus, the tribal orc. These creatures are generally recognized by their green skin and their giant ears. Oh, there you have it, my friends. Orcs, truly a remarkable species, and as I like to say at the end of this talk, no good news is good gnorcs. And enjoy the show. Welcome back to Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, Brian Hines. Today we're going to leave the world of superheroes behind and take a rare dip into the world of fantasy. But before we get started, how about a quick prayer to my favorite deity, the god of Tuyub, a fickle god who holds most of his followers down with math. Oh, Tuyub, hear my pledge. May my viewers follow your 3 tenets: liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking your holy bell for notifications. And should they fail in these tasks, let them at least worship at your brother's plate, Tate Prion, he who funnels my followers' funds to me to help these shows get made. Amen. And women, oh hell, let's just say person and get on with it. Thank you. Today we're reviewing the fantasy comic book, The Hunger and the Dusk, from IDW Publishing. Hey, no reason to wait, let's dive right into issues 1 and 2.
The Hunger and the Dusk is a 12-issue series being published by IDW Press. It's written by G. Willow Wilson, best known in comic book circles as the creator of Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, and drawn by Chris Wildgoose.
Must not follow his name with chase. Must not follow his name with chase. I wonder if anyone ever tell anyone what to be called a wild goose chase. Oh. Yeah. You people knew what you were getting into when you pressed play.
The first issue opens with 2 boys in a place called the Vanishing Lands. They're picking apples when they spy 3 orcs riding towards their village. They run to warn the others as the orcs wonder if humans tell tales of their cruelty to children. The eldest of this scouting party decides to return to their warlord and tell her that this town will offer them no resistance. Warned by the boys, the farmers rally to defend their lands, even as the orcs worry about getting their livestock here fast enough. The northern lands are dying and they need the grass here to feed their cattle. They smell smoke on the wind coming from a nearby beach. Before they can really react, the orcs are butchered by an unseen enemy. Back at the village, the farmers have armed to take on the orcs. The boys wonder if any of the great fighting companies will come to their aid, but the elders explain they mostly keep north where the orcs are. Several figures appear on the horizon as the farmers get ready to fight, but an ox head is thrown at their feet. These aren't the orcs. The oldest farmers call them the ones who left. Later, the village is burning and only one survivor, a young boy, walks away. Cue to 6 months later. The leader of a battle company named Cal and his friend, traveling bard Sev, are here for a truce. Cal is worried. If the orcs are lying, then this is the perfect place for an ambush. Sev, on the other hand, doesn't trust the clerics organizing this truce. Why invite them? They're the weakest of the fighting companies available. But the clerics overhear them. They're plotting all right, nothing less than the salvation of the human race. Cal doesn't want his company, the last men standing, to even be here, but Overlord Troth wanted him specifically. They fought before, and Cal impressed him when he killed 3 orcs to give his men a chance to retreat.
Run, men! I'll hold them off, killing multiple orcs to save your lives. Although I don't seem to have a sword.
Cal?
What?
You know how we're the worst team of mercenaries out there?
I wouldn't say worst, but I take your point. Why?
So if you can kill 3 orcs all by yourself while your team is in full retreat, why are we running?
What?
I'm just saying, if the captain of the weakest mercenary band can kill 3 times his number, then the rest of us should be able to hold our own. Following that train of logic, why haven't the other stronger mercenaries wiped out the orc armies by this point?
Drama?
Troth arrives with an entourage including his cousin Tara. She's to be left with the humans as a diplomat, something Tara is less than thrilled with. The humans are their lifelong enemies, but the Vangal are back, and they devour both human and orc. This alliance is their only chance at survival. Tara feels this is too much. Troth promises to come for her if she asks, but she reminds him he's getting married soon. The standing stones where they meet is an old boundary marker for their lands. Well, perhaps today the standing stones will have a new meaning for their children. Tara reminds Troth they won't be having any children. Cal senses someone behind him and draws a sword on Troth. They slowly drop their weapons. Cal doesn't think Tara should be with his group. They're poor and sleep in dirt. But Tara is an excellent healer, and of all the mercenaries Troth has fought, Cal is the only one he trusts with her life. But Cal is just a peasant with a sword, too stupid to run away. Troth reminds him that he didn't run away in order to protect his men. That's who he wants protecting his cousin. The clerics speak. The war between orc and man is over. Grukthar Icebane will join Callum Battlechild's last men standing to fight the Vangal together. A largely symbolic gesture, but before they can get into logistics, an orc warns that the Vangal are here. Red mist fills the air. The battle begins and Troth beheads a Vangal, a thin, pale, white-haired humanoid. Troth can't find Tara. Tara is set upon and begs for mercy, but the Vangal simply says, hungry, and swings. Cal saves her with a well-timed shield. He gets sliced in the back, but Tara seems to steal life force from the Vangal to heal Cal. The battle is over, and the Alliance has defeated this party. Cal is impressed. He takes her to meet his mercenaries as Tara and Troth stare at each other longingly before going their separate ways. The narration explaining that the Vangal only come out at dusk with a terrible hunger.
I love it! I see it as some sort of epic romantic poem, forbidden love, duty of a passion, great swords and horrific monsters, Beowulf by way of Wuthering Heights, and we'll call it The Dusk and the Hunger. All great titles are alphabetical in nature.
Issue 2 opens with Tara meeting the last men standing, Sev, Nera, Mikhail, Conwy, and Loris. Meanwhile, Troth is on his wedding hunt with his fiancée, Lady Farran. She thinks they should set up camp. He's apologetic for not being more attentive. This marriage cements an alliance between Stoneback and Icebane tribes, but Farran knows Troth really wanted to marry Tara. In bed that night, Farran wonders if the truce with the humans can work. Troth thinks that they have a chance, but greed on both sides might lead to their fall. Farran hears wolves. They gather their weapons and head out. They come upon an enormous white wolf, and Troth jumps at it, sword held high. He delivers the killing blow, but the wolf's mate is right behind him. He's about to get his head bit off when the second wolf falls, dead by Farran's axe. She's a little nervous that she may have done something wrong when he silently embraces her.
Oh. Nothing says I may not love you, but I can now trust you and enter into this marriage of political alliance peacefully more than killing a wild animal from behind while using your fiancé as bait. May you all find someone like that. Not me. I'm married for love. Ugh. I'm just kidding. No one will have me.
Later, on the silent shore, their shaman presents the couple with robes trimmed with white fur collars made from the wolves they killed. They are now married, and their tribes are one. Meanwhile, on the western coast, Cal, Tara, and Mikhail spy a Vangal raider boat. She's sure that attacking them with such small numbers is lunacy, but Cal explains he fights differently than orcs do. As they head back, he notices that she's writing. Yes, she's keeping a record of her times. One date will be included in the Great Archive. She offers to let Cal look it over, but he can't read. Well, that surprises her, but Cal is the bastard of the raider who assaulted his mother. His education was never anyone's priority. She kindly offers to teach Cal how to read.
We start with alphabet. Ugh, bleh, trudge.
Those are sounds of pain.
Yes. Orc alphabet based on pain.
Oh, I just assumed you'd teach me how to read human languages.
I'm an orc.
Right, my bad.
Tara understands being judged by your parents. Her parents were leaders who died in a Vangal raid. Afterwards, many blamed them for not doing enough to prepare for the raid, and thus she was looked down upon, and her loss of status led to her not marrying her cousin. The orphans share a moment of connection when Loris warns them that the Vangals are now attacking their camp. The Vangals came from the east, which makes no sense because they just left them in the west. Loris stays behind to protect Tara as Kale and Mikhail go ahead. The last men are trapped in a ravine, Vangals on either side. Nothing for it but to fight their way out. It's a bloody battle, but they survive. At least until Kale hears Tara screaming. Despite her best efforts as a healer, Loris was swarmed upon and is now dead.
So there you have it, the opening chapters of The Hunger and the Dusk, two ancient enemies drawn together by a third threat. But what are the Vangal? Can humanity and orcs live side by side? And why do orcs have such huge ears? We may not get all the answers, but let's take a closer look at The Hunger and the Dusk, issues 1 and 2.
With all the initial focus being on the appearance of the Vangal and what that means to the combined races, I do think the focus of this comic book is going to be these two sets of relationships. Cal and Tara, Troth and Faran. Now, what these couples go through and whether or not they'll be reunited or put at odds by book's end is still up in the air, but the heart of this title will most likely be these two relationships. And, at least in these first two issues, those relationships are running parallel. A man and a woman thrust together in order to ensure peace. Can feelings grow? Will love blossom or resentment? On to the bigger picture and the questions that have been raised. Why is the world dying? It's implied that farmlands and grazing lands are becoming smaller, but we don't know why. And where have the Vangal been? Were they dead? Banished? The world building is there, but we've got 10 issues to go before we get all the answers. I enjoyed the story and the art, but there are some things I thought could have been done differently to the book's benefit. For one thing, the orcs could have been a little less human. Physically speaking, they're essentially green-skinned humans with giant ears and one less finger. And while hatred is never as simple as they look different, it could add a level of intimidation and disconnect between the two species if they looked more like, say, their Warcraft counterparts. Also, so far we've seen noble and kind members of both races. This doesn't exactly explain why they couldn't live in peace. We only had one example of orc-human conflict, and that was cut short by the Vangal. We're being asked to take a lot of the history in this book for granted, and I think we need a few more examples of the animosity. I'm thinking we'll get that once Tara encounters more normal humans outside of the military discipline of Kale's fighting unit. And the Vangals. They look like emaciated vampires. I'm not saying they're not scary, but again, so far we've seen little example of their threat. Yes, they wiped out some farmers and an orc scouting party. Suddenly, two races are on the run from them, yet in the battles we've seen since, the allied races wiped out the Vangal and suffered only one casualty. There's an old rule in storytelling, show, don't tell. We've had a lot of telling, we need more showing to sell it. That said, G. Willow Wilson has moved into the fantasy genre pretty well. She writes strong, fleshed-out characters and gives the world mysteries to solve, and threats that, in my mind, just need a little more credibility to get the book where it needs to be. The art by Chris Wildgoose is very clean and crisp. He does great expression work on his characters and handles the action well. Whatever small problems I do have with this book, visually, it's a treat.
So while this book is good to look at and I enjoy the interpersonal relationships in these first two issues, I can only hope we see more of this world and build the stakes before getting to the book's climax. I give The Hunger and the Dusk, issues 1 and 2, 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's an intriguing book that just needs to build the tension a little more, in my opinion. Well, until next time, my friends, when I start writing my autobiographical novel called The Hunger and the Dork, this has been Comic Book Issues, and I'm your host, Brian Hines.